picture this: a city of marble palaces floating on water, a maze of canals instead of roads, gondolas instead of cars. This isn't a fantasy novel. This is Venice. But have you ever stopped to wonder how on earth it was built? How does a city not just survive, but thrive, while literally sitting in the middle of a lagoon? The story of Venice isn't just about art and romance. It's a jaw-dropping tale of human ingenuity and some of the most audacious engineering in history. So, let's rewind the clock. We're back in the 5th century. The Roman Empire is crumbling, and people from the mainland are fleeing invaders. They need a safe haven, a place that's difficult to attack. Their eyes fall on a muddy, swampy, and seemingly uninhabitable lagoon on the Adriatic coast. Most people would see this as a terrible place to build a hut, let alone a city. But for these refugees, its greatest weakness was its greatest strength. The water was a natural defense. The decision was made. They were going to build their new home right here, in the middle of the water. But how do you build on what is essentially mud and water? You can't just pour a foundation. The early Venetians came up with a solution that sounds absolutely insane, but it worked. They needed to create solid ground where there was none. So, they started by driving thousands upon thousands of wooden piles, basically entire tree trunks, deep into the soft mud and sand of the lagoon floor. These weren't just any trees. They were usually alderwood, chosen because it's incredibly water-resistant. They hammered these piles, 10, 15, even 20 feet long, down through the soft layers until they hit a much harder, more stable layer of compressed clay underneath, known as Think of it like pushing thousands of giant nails into a board. This dense forest of underwater wooden stilts created a stable base. But they weren't done yet. On top of this submerged forest, they laid 2 layers of thick wooden planks. Then, on top of the planks, they placed massive blocks of Istrian stone, a type of dense, waterproof limestone. This created a solid, level, and waterproof platform just above the waterline. And that, right there, is the foundation for every single building in Venice. Every magnificent church, every grand palazzo, every humble home is resting on a petrified underwater forest. It's a mind-boggling thought. The city of Venice is essentially built on stilts. And here's the craziest part. Those wooden piles don't rot. You'd think what's submerged in water for centuries would just turn to mush, right? Well, because they are driven deep into the mud and constantly submerged in salt water, they are cut off from oxygen. Oxygen is what the microorganisms that cause wood to decay need to survive. No oxygen, no decay. Instead of rotting, over the centuries, the constant flow of mineral-rich water has caused the wood to petrify, essentially turning it into a stone-like substance. So, the foundations of Venice are not just old. They are getting stronger over time. The engineering genius here is that they used a natural process to their advantage. Now that they had a place to build, they needed to get around. Forget roads and cars. The canals were Venice's highways. The city is a web of over 150 canals. These weren't all natural channels. Many of them were dredged and widened by hand to create the intricate network we see today. They served as the main arteries for transport, commerce, and even sanitation. Everything, from building materials to groceries to the city's residents, moved by boat. And connecting this labyrinth of islands are over 400 bridges. Each one is a small engineering marvel, designed to arc high enough for boats to pass underneath, while still being easy for pedestrians to cross. But living in a lagoon presents another massive challenge: getting fresh water. You're surrounded by salt water, which you can't drink. Venetians solved this problem with another brilliant system. In the center of many of their squares, or campi, you'll see what looks like an ornamental wellhead. These aren't just for decoration. They are the visible part of an ingenious underground cistern system called a pozzo. Here's how it worked. They would dig a large pit and line it with clay to make it waterproof, creating a big underground basin. They then filled this basin with sand and gravel. The rainwater that fell on the surrounding square and rooftops would be channeled into the basin through stone drains. The layers of sand and gravel acted as a natural filter, cleaning the rainwater as it seeped down. The fresh, filtered water would then collect at the bottom, and the wellhead in the middle of the square was simply the access point to draw this clean drinking water. It was a sophisticated, decentralized water purification system for the entire city, centuries ahead of its time. Of course, the story of Venetian engineering isn't just in the past. It's an ongoing battle against the very element that defines it. Water. Venice is sinking. This is partly due to the compression of the soil beneath the city and partly due to rising sea levels, the phenomenon of acqua alta, or high water, where the tides flood the city's squares and walkways, has become more frequent and severe. So, what's the 21st century solution to this ancient problem? Meet MOSE. It stands for Modulo Sperimento Elettromeccanico, and it's one of the most ambitious and controversial engineering projects in the world. It's a system of 78 massive hollow steel gates, installed at the 3 inlets where the Adriatic Sea enters the Venetian lagoon. Normally, these gates lie flat on the seabed, full of water and invisible. But when a dangerously high tide is forecast, compressed air is pumped into the gates, forcing the water out. This makes them buoyant, and they pivot upwards, rising out of the water to form a temporary barrier, a massive seawall that seals off the lagoon from the rising Adriatic Sea. It took decades to build and cost billions of euros, but MOSE is now operational. It's a high-tech shield designed to protect a medieval city. It's the modern chapter in Venice's long and crazy engineering story, proving that the same spirit of innovation that drove those first settlers to build on water is still alive and kicking today. From petrified wooden foundations and ingenious rainwater harvesting systems to giant inflatable sea barriers, Venice is so much more than just a beautiful tourist destination. It is a living, breathing monument to human resilience and our incredible ability to adapt and engineer solutions to seemingly impossible problems. It's a city that shouldn't exist, but it does, thanks to centuries of brilliant and frankly a little bit crazy engineering. Next time you see a picture of a gondola gliding down a canal, remember the hidden underwater forest it's floating above. Remember the city that has been fighting a winning battle against the sea for over 1,000 years. It truly is one of the wonders of the world. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into Venetian engineering, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more stories like this. See you in the next one.